Long overdue. What's up, Rob Chrisman?
Good morning, afternoon, evening.
Yeah, all that. It's good to see you. Well, you're a West Coaster. How have you been? I can't believe I've not had you on yet. This is a signature moment for me.
Well, and for me, right? So I've been good. Been The traveling has kicked back. It seems like the industry takes a lot of July off in terms of conferences. Things quiet down. But August, the MMLA took place in Michigan, and then there was the Western Secondary, and off we go. And then September, things really pick up. So looking forward to getting back on the road somewhat. It's certainly nice to see people live and in the flesh, but steady she goes pretty much.
I mean, you're approaching 40 years in the mortgage business, cap markets background. Of course, everyone knows you as the guy behind the Chrisman Report, and you bring so much information into the industry. How have things changed and transformed from a simple email template world to this digital world that we're in right now for you in the Chrisman Report? I know your son Robbie's doing a great job with sort of Chrisman 2.0. You have a lot of podcasts almost every day, I think. How has the landscape impacted your business, and how have you changed?
Well, to tell you the truth, Greg, it hasn't. How do you like that?
I love
Uh,
that. It hasn't, but it has, because like a few years ago, you didn't have podcasts. Now you've got a
yeah.
lot of podcasts, a lot of industry insiders that rep the brand. So I mean, I guess it's changed. Maybe the information, the way what you put into it hasn't changed, but certainly you guys are doing some current things, and it's making an impact. It's showing up.
So interestingly enough, the recently I went through kind of my archives, reboxing stuff up, wondering if I had to have all these boxes of stuff. And there was literally a treasure trove of old programs and agendas from conferences from decades ago. And I was looking at the topics, and really the topics have not changed all that much, especially from 2008. For example, as soon as we put Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac into conservatorship, we started talking about GSE reform and getting them out of conservatorship. So that we're still talking about that 17 years later. But if you look at the topics from conferences from the 1990s and 2000s, it's all about how to reach the customer, how to hedge a pipeline, current events with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, what's the investor landscape, and so forth. So really, to your point, the topics haven't changed much. The delivery has, in terms of Chrisman LLC. In terms of Rob Chrisman, really the delivery has not changed much for quite some time. I get up at 4 a.m. West Coast time. I put the finishing editorial touches on the commentary. I try to send it out by around 5:30 a.m. and out it goes via email or constant contact, and it gets posted wherever. Robbie has taken that because some years ago, 2 or 3, 4 years ago, I think at this point, I was on vacation with a group of mortgage folks, and a woman, Tammy Golden from Arch MI, came back from a run in Hawaii and said, boy, it'd be nice to listen to your commentary instead of having to come back and then, boot it up. Why don't you put it on a podcast, which I had little or no interest in doing, really. But I told Robbie a few days later, if you want to do something like this, knock yourself out. You can take the commentary and throw in some interviews or whatever you want to do. It's your deal. So I think that Robbie, being at that point in his late 20s, probably saw some of the same value that you do with your shows and thought, okay, I can create more than just my dad sending out the email or the constant contact every day. I can tap into this as you have, Greg, and you've been so successful at. So he took the ball and ran with it. And right, he's added some podcasts and he added some thought leadership pieces, and so away that's gone. But meanwhile, back in the trenches, I'm still up at 4 a.m. sending the commentary out, and
Yeah.
enjoy doing that.
Well, it looks like you're doing more, but for you in your 60s now, I bet you're doing less and, trying to enjoy more of a balance than you once did.
I do, because life goes by, time flies, and
Yeah.
I've got a couple of grandkids. Marie, Robbie's sister, has had two children, a 2-year-old and now a 2-month-old. And so, I try to keep things in perspective. And you, the interesting thing, Greg, and you'll see this as you get older, and you probably may already see it about, 2 or 3 times a month now, I will receive an email saying, "Hey, Rob, I've decided to call it a career, but I want to keep receiving your commentary. So can you change my email from yada, 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 ABC Mortgage to yada, yada, yada at hotmail.com," or whatever it might be. Or unfortunately, people pass away, people die, sometime in very in an untimely manner. And I know it's part of life, but it's also continues to serve as a wake up call for me that, I think it was Warren Zevon who said, enjoy every sandwich. And hats off to Warren, but it's true. You don't want to get to the end of your career or the end of your life and think, I wish I'd done that, or I wish I'd done this. And I'm able, fortunately, to send the commentary out, and Robbie's enjoying what he's doing, but at the same time, try to enjoy my family a little bit and do some traveling and just get on my bike.
How many
I
subscribers?
assume that you're doing the same thing, right? I mean,
Well, I don't know a lot of people that are dying, so that's good. But I guess maybe I'm entering
good.
that phase here shortly.
That's good.
And
I mean, you look at, even Dave Stevens going back some years, but recently, a couple of people from Guild Mortgage, Sean Kirkland, was on the correspondent side, and I think he was in his late 40s. He died in a golf cart accident, and before that, Guild, somebody else died on their golf course. But Chrissy Ray from MIG Online, people pass away.
We've lost a lot of good ones, for sure. So no, I can appreciate that you're trying to make the most of every day. How many subscribers do you have these days? I mean, I've heard if you go online and you look, there's some reports 60, 70, 80,000. I know it bounces around a lot, but do you really have that many subscribers, like in the
It's
north of 50,000?
I haven't looked lately. I've been saying about 80,000 for quite some time, because what happens is, the commentary will go to somebody at a company, and then they forward it with my permission on to 250 of their loan officers. So I can't really track that. And it also goes out in a variety of ways, which I don't really track. I post that people post on organizations' websites and so on. So yeah, about I will stand by the 80,000 or so. Now, granted, not everybody reads it every day, right? So
Yeah, no, that's but still, it's quite remarkable. I have a list of things I want to hit with you here, and so these are just topics that I want your opinion on. I'm going to just rapid fire, hit them and go for a good 10, 15 minutes here. Are you game?
I'm game.
I'm putting my glasses on here, so I'm getting serious.
If I don't know the answer, I will.
Well, or if you want to stay away from it, to be politically correct, because it's a balancing act, I'm sure, right? A lot of people, and you get a lot of information, and we'll start here. You get a lot of information before anybody else gets the information. Now, I'm wondering how often you get breaking news but can't release it due to the relationships that you have, and how mentally you're able to get over that hurdle of knowing, hey, I had that before anybody else, but out of respect for my connection, I need to sit on it while other people break that news.
So that started happening some years ago, and I was upset a little bit But I realize that, having my capital markets background, you know, time and schedules and information are very important, and especially market moves or market news, which could move markets. For example, I receive some economic news before it actually comes out in the press, all the time, scheduled. So I guess that's part of my reputation, just being able to kind of keep a secret and not release information that can impact things ahead of time. I think my long-term relationships are more important than breaking a news story. Now some news sources, or I shouldn't say news sources, news reporting institutions will they have people all day long waiting for news or interviewing people or saying, oh well, this is rumored to be happening and that's rumored to be happening. And I don't I've designed my life around not sitting in front of a computer all day waiting for that, nor do I really want to pay somebody to do that. And I think sometimes it's good and sometimes it backfires. But the fact of the matter is, my relationships over the decades are more important than
Yeah.
breaking a news story. And what I try to do, Greg, just as you do, I mean, you've had some remarkable people on this show, and you are very good about having your finger on the pulse of things. What I try to do, as you do, is put context on things, put perspective on things, and not say, "Wow, ABC is happening," but rather, like when I send the commentary out again, to say, "Yes, ABC is happening, and here's why it's important to originators." So I try to frame things in such a way that I don't need to be the first one reporting a rumor, for example, but I try to say, okay, here's what it means for the industry, and that's, I think, helpful for people.
Yeah. Well, in that same context, like I wonder what you think of people like me, people that are out there that aren't necessarily, news or official news organizations, but the internet and social media and LinkedIn in particular has given a lot of us a microphone and a format. Now, some of us are more careful than others. Some of us are more careless than others, but curious to know your thoughts on the landscape, the media landscape. You've got Housing Wire, National Mortgage News, all these other entities that are now in the fray, plus all the talking heads.
The politically correct statement I would make is that there's room for everybody.
But how do you really feel, Rob? Come on. Stop it.
I think that over time, individuals such as yourself or institutions like National Mortgage Professional, for example, or Mortgage News Daily, they find their niche, they find the lane that they want to swim in. That term is a little bit overused, but they have a comfort level. And I remember when I started sending the commentary out, it's been 17 years now, since 2008. And I was sending it out before that to just really a bare handful of people. And in 2008, I effectively retired from the industry, but I kept sending this commentary out. Excuse me. And I remember a couple institutions or reporting services that basically dismissed me. And interestingly enough, some of them are no longer around, but they were kind of like, oh, that Rob Chrisman, yeah, he's harmless, or he doesn't really matter. He's not germane to what we do as an industry. And that I kind of took offense from that somewhat, but I thought, I've got a capital markets background. My background is a little bit unique in the industry. If you look at some of the people who are out there saying certain things, maybe they don't have a background in the industry. I mean, you certainly have a background in the industry. So I looked at that and I thought, you know what, I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to do my thing. I've got a great way of explaining why interest rates are moving, why news moves mortgage rates, why investors are so important. And so I'm going to just focus on that
Yeah.
and go about my business. And kind of one by one, some of these other institutions have gone away.
I
Others
think
have.
that's the moral of the story, I think, isn't it? That, if you can't, jack of all trades, master of none. If you pick a lane and stay in it, but so I think what leads to failure and challenges for some entities is this, wanting to have it all, wanting to do it all, stepping outside of their skis. And so a couple of times during this conversation, you've said, "Oh, well, that irked me," but then and here you're saying, "Well, I just, those people." When I'm sensing that you're a very competitive guy, but that you're able to keep that in control. But are you highly competitive, just in general, like going back to when you grew up? And I'm sure you played sports. You're a tall, guy in shape. So like that, just tell me about that. Are you?
I am. I still play basketball, but I also realize that I play basketball in games where the 25 or 30-year-olds are guarding each other, and the 50 or 60-year-olds are guarding each other, and so you just kind of realize, all right, I'm not going to go out and ride a 100-mile bike ride in a competitive way. I am not going to. I've never been a loan officer, for example. You, for example, have a fantastic knowledge of what it's like to originate a loan, to sit across the table from a borrower and deal psychologically with what they are dealing with. I don't have that. On the other hand, I've hedged, billions of dollars of pipelines. Now, when you look at that, and I think to myself, all right, well, I will be talking to a room full of loan officers. They know infinitely more about the psychology of their borrowers, trying to figure out programs, trying to figure out pricing and so forth. They know more about that than I ever will, nor do I want to learn what they know. However, I can lend my voice to what they are trying to do and try to help them understand what's going on in the capital markets. So when you talk about competition, I am not competing with somebody who was a loan officer and was a great loan officer. On the other hand, they don't have a capital markets background. So what I've done is try to understand what it's like to originate a loan, or bring in subject matter experts similar to what you do on this show so well. And that's bringing people with other points of view, other backgrounds, and say, how can you lend that voice to the overall tapestry of the industry? Because
I
this
know you're.
industry.
I know you're
Go ahead.
competitive, though. I know you're competitive. You turn the question into competition, and do you feel it? But I know that you got a fire that burns inside you for sure. Now you're able to manage it, but it's obvious. If you didn't have that edge, you wouldn't be as successful as you are. All right, so we're going to do something here, and this is going to be challenging for both of us because we both have a lot to say. I'm going to just hit you with 10 topics, and let's try and keep the answers 30 seconds or less. What do you think about
to do?
Really?
Two or three sentences.
Okay. No, don't do that. Just, you can go over 30, but I'm just going to throw things out and you tell me what you think. You ready?
I'm ready.
FICO monopoly.
FICO monopoly.
I told you this wouldn't be easy. Yeah, it's like a word association game. I'll let you start the 30 seconds. Well, you could say, Greg, I don't feel like they have a monopoly, and I see what's going on in credit and blah, blah, blah. Whatever you say here. Let's start. Here we go. FICO monopoly.
I think that monopolies are not good when you talk about credit score. There's so much going on right now. There's a lot going on, and then there's kind of nothing going on. There's a lot of talk about it, and there's not a lot of action necessarily. I think that Bill Pulte recently coming out and saying, okay, we can do this, and the agencies are going to do that. And that's all well and good. But when you talk to the people who are in the trenches dealing with these changes, I think change takes a while in this industry, and it's nice to have a goal, but it's going to take a while to get there. And regarding the monopoly, nobody likes monopolies per se. When you look at the Fair Isaac company itself, it's done very well from a stock perspective, but I think that the industry deserves to have options. And
Right.
when you talk to any originator, you can understand that there are different ways to evaluate a borrower's ability to repay, and relying on FICO isn't necessarily always the best.
Yeah, that was about a minute and 10 seconds, FYI.
Oh yeah,
So
I'll try to scale it back.
we'll keep chiseling away here. Rocket shopping spree.
God bless them. You know, the successful companies tend to do well and improve and grow. And I would never bet against Rocket. I would never bet against UWM. I would never bet against Freedom. These individuals and these companies have proven themselves year in and year out, and it's fun to watch the changes in the industry.
But this idea of the flywheel that Varun talks about, and having the consumer, you know, knowing everything about them and keeping them in the financial ecosystem that you built, is that, do you think that I mean, that hasn't really happened yet, right? I mean, nobody has more than 10% market share, and everybody else has just got pieces. Is that where we're headed?
That, I think that's a great thing about this industry is Rocket will run a Super Bowl ad, and everybody will be, oh my gosh, Rocket. But you're right, the market share is divided into so many players, and it's a reminder that you can have a great marketing program or great technology, and yet, given that we are all individuals, we may have a preference for some other technology or some other individual, and the wide range of personalities and companies in this industry keep reminding us that, you know, there's a lot of mortgages to be originated out there, and not everybody's going to go to UWM or Rocket or Freedom or Plaza or, you know, pick a company and get a loan there. And so
Varun Krishna, he was able to help TurboTax get to 50% market share. He's got a similar vision for mortgage. Do you think Rocket will get to 20% or more market share at some point?
No.
Okay. Next question. Rocket versus UWM. Now, you just said you respect UWM, Freedom, Rocket. I respect them all as well. But when you see kind of the jostling back and forth that has taken place, what are the thoughts that go through your head between the two of them?
If the consumer benefits, then good. If brokers and originators in the industry can benefit, then good. I remember back, and this answer is going to take a little bit longer than 30 seconds, but I remember back when Countrywide was battling it out with Wells Fargo, and Countrywide made a point of saying, we want a certain market share. I forget if it was 20 or 25%. That's our goal. And I always thought, it's nice to have a goal, but I look at things differently. I look at things, if my policies, procedure, pricing, reputation get me to 25, then great. But I'm not going to have a goal to get to 25. But based on what I do, if my market shares grows, that's what's important.
All right. Got that. NAR settlement. I mean, it was going to disrupt, destroy, be a real problem for the mortgage industry. What did it turn out to be, Rob?
Well, I'm not going to say a nothing burger, but when I talk to real estate agents now, it's kind of like, oh, you know, it's turned out to be much ado about nothing, frankly.
Yeah, I remember it was a scary moment. We've had a lot of those moments, though, haven't we?
Well, we have. We as an industry continue to overcome big and small obstacles. And when this came along and all the realtors said, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And all the loan officers, how am I going to help my realtor clients? I would always tell them, whatever you don't offer legal advice, but NAR will figure it out. And those real estate agents, they'll figure it out. They don't necessarily need our help.
Yeah. All right. This is something I'm passionate about. Foreign investors buying up our residential real estate, you know, boxing out the affordability problem and really enhancing it for, you know, in two ways. Number one, they get a property that a U.S. citizen could get. Number two, oftentimes they pay cash. They drive the price up, which makes it even further out of reach. That's my opinion. Other people say that hey, it's healthy. That's what makes our housing system great. What do you say?
Leading up to the Michigan mortgage lenders, I had a blurb about the government of Singapore owning hundreds of thousands of acres in upstate Michigan, which they've owned for a number of years. And it upset some people to realize, oh my gosh, here's an example of a foreign government owning a chunk of the United States. I tend to be more free market thinking, that if I wanted to go buy a little pied-à-terre in London or Paris, I should be able to do that. I wouldn't want the government in France to tell me you can't own this. I think that the United States is a democracy, and it's in theory a free market. And if somebody comes in and wants to buy a house, then so be it. Now, interestingly enough, Greg, as you know better than anyone probably, the inventory levels of places available for sale have been creeping up. So something's going on out there. I think there are places for U.S. citizens to buy if they can buy them.
No, ironically, the countries that are purchasing the most residential property and farmland, although there are a lot of restrictions around that now, and there's a lot of scrutiny on that. But let's just keep an eye on the residential stuff. Those countries have very strict laws. China, for instance, they're the leader, right? You can't get a house in China. It takes literally an act of Congress. You have to live there for a year. You can only get one house. It's leasehold for 70 years, I think. It's not freehold, but yet they can come here and buy tens of thousands of properties without any resistance. To me, let's go on to the next thing, because we can talk about that forever. The insurance premium problem. It's there. I want your opinion on it, and how does it get solved? I'll give you a minute on that one. Because that was a two-parter.
Everyone's talking about, oh my God, the housing crisis that we're in now. I don't know if we're in a housing crisis. You could talk about the affordability crisis, and I'd say that's more prevalent. And I think that it's important for lenders to remember that the mortgage part of the affordability issue is only a part of the affordability issue. Rates can only do so much. You have HOA fees, you have condo assessments, you've got insurance nightmares, you've got property tax issues. So all of that combines into an affordability issue. With insurance, if you want a free market economy, the government can't tell the insurance companies how to set their premiums. The government can't step in and control their price. The government can do things to help, but really there's pent-up premium appreciation that's been suppressed for a while, and now we're seeing it, and now it is a real problem. I don't see it going away, especially with some of the severity of the storms increasing in different parts of the nation. And so insurance companies are finally saying, hey, we're losing money if we have somebody, and I've got a neighbor, for example, who was paying $1,000 a year for decades, and suddenly her house floods and she runs up a $300,000 flooding, remodeling bill due to this flooding. Well, the insurance company never collected that from her. So the ability for the insurance companies to come back and say, all right, we're going to start charging market prices for these premiums, probably long overdue.
I'm talking about more so like how it's going to lead to delinquencies. I believe this is like one of the top 3 ticking time bombs we're sitting on right now, where, and just so everybody understands, people get approved, particularly low down payment FHA loans, first time home buyers. They're barely getting into the house in the first place with a DTI of 51 or 47, with an insurance cost of, let's call it $800 a month, and that resets every year. So when it goes to $1,200, $1,500, what happens? People have to make decisions now. Do I put food on my table, or do I pay this higher mortgage payment than I thought I'd ever pay? And that leads to delinquencies, which we're seeing in the market right now. I'm not one of those people that expects the government to. I'm probably in between. Expects the government to step in, but I do believe they need some kind of a program like a FEMA, something to stand up the insurance companies. All right, let's continue, because we've been on that one for a minute here. new blood in the business. Like, are we doing a good enough job, bringing in new originators? And how big of a concern is it if you feel like we're not?
Certainly, if you look at the conferences that I've been to in the last year or two or three, there are more new faces than I've seen in the past. And with the aging of our population in terms of mortgage banking, if I'm a 25 or 30-year-old or 35-year-old borrower, do I want to deal with a loan officer who's my age or some 75-year-old loan officer who's been, doing it for decades? I'd rather deal with somebody about my age. And I think I've been beating this drum about youth in the industry for quite some time. I think it's improving. Can it improve more? Sure. But many of the people in their late 60s or 70s don't want to leave the industry, don't want to make room for newer people. They can't necessarily be forced out. But I am seeing some green shoots out there in terms of new faces at the conventions that I go to.
Yeah. Well, I had Gary Acosta on here a couple of weeks ago, and he belted a stat out there like, in the next however many years, 70% of first-time homebuyers are going to be Black and brown communities, and we definitely are not bringing in, like our company, for instance, we're not bringing in new young people. Like our branches and divisions are bringing them in, right? But corporately, we don't have a mandate, and we have to get better. I have to practice what I preach, and we all need to really double down on that. The challenge is that it's a harder business now. The business is changing. There's less business to go around. I'm not making excuses, but this is just the reality. And then the barriers of entry, having to get licensed and to SAFE Act and all this stuff. And then if you have a class of 10 people that you're training, you're lucky if 3 stick. So now you've invested all this money. So it's a definite challenge. What do you think this business looks like in 5 years? Do you think it's going to be materially different? Getting off of that subject, just more broadly,
I don't think it'll be dramatically different. I think it's important for people to remember that somebody new coming into the industry, they don't know what it was like 5 years ago. They don't know what it was like 20 years ago. And so for them, it's just, this is the reality of the industry. Now, it's not as flashy as, computer programming, but then we've got AI replacing plenty of programmers out there, and people continue to need home loans. And they need people who understand technology and to leverage that technology to help their borrowers. And I think that's where youth coming into this industry will have an advantage over somebody who's been in it, 40 years.
Yeah. I feel like since I've been in the industry 28 years, there have been these moments. You can go back to the financial crisis or, the GFE going away or, any of these things, LO comp, the pandemic. I'm missing probably 5 of these signature moments. We're in a signature moment right now from the lens of, oh my goodness, the business is changing so dramatically. It's never going to be the same again. Is that are we all just falling victim to the fact that we're in that moment and this is just another one of these times, or is there something materially different about the moment we're in right now that's going to affect things, in a substantive way moving forward?
My personal opinion is that history may not repeat, but it rhymes, and we continue to move forward as an industry, and we've kind of been through this before. I don't view a huge change in the industry that will have a material effect that's different than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the heat that you've taken that no one ever finds out about. I was privy to an email that I would never share the content or who sent or what, but there was something that you published a couple of years ago, and some CEOs started to get on an email, and then more CEOs got on an email. People were replying to all, and some shots were taken at you. You may know the email that I'm talking about. I'm sure it's not the only one out there. What's it like to take on shrapnel like that? How do you approach those moments? How often does it happen?
I live my life trying to not receive emails with general counsel in the signature line.
That one did. I don't think that one had it. We've mentioned some names of people, already here, that were on that were copied on that particular email. But I'm just curious to know how often something like that comes into play and how you approach those moments where you're taking, serious, like threatening dialogue on.
It can ruin your day. I won't hide that fact, but you try to think, all right, well, they're just they've got their opinion, just like I have my opinion. And I think that my opinion is better in some cases than the emails or the texts that I receive. So, and sometimes they're right. And I don't mind apologizing if I say something wrong, but, there's everybody's entitled to whatever they want to say or think. And it's not going to ruin, I'm not going to ruin my life over it.
You're a pretty chill guy.
I try to be. To be.
Have you always been chill? Like, were you much more intense when you were younger, and then you've kind of morphed into this chill guy?
Hey, people do tend to mellow. You play, like I play basketball every Saturday. All right. I've played basketball thousands of times. You can't or tennis. I play tennis. You can't get throw your racket mad in tennis because you know what? I'm not going to play in Wimbledon. I have to just, I know I'm going to play this guy or gal next week or next month. Let's just get on with it and try to do better myself. So
all right, I'll try and speed this up and make it just a couple more minutes. You've been to how many conferences? 500, 1,000? Can you mean somewhere in there, right? I mean,
20 or 30.
Yeah, you've been to so many conferences, right? So, what is your overall feel about the conference scene? I personally have been to a bunch of conferences, a fraction of what you've been to, but there just seems to be, just a lack of energy. And is that just what it is? Conferences are conferences, or do you think that there is room for, to change the conference experience?
I think the conference experience is based on the individual attending the conference. If you go to a conference and you just wanted to see the pals that you've had for decades and hang out and go to the mortgage insurance MI party, then great, you can do that. If you go to a conference and you genuinely want to learn about something that's going on in the industry, you should be able to do that as well. It's interesting to me is that different conferences have different cultures. Different, the Hawaii conference is different than the New England conference, which is different than the Florida conference, which is different than the Pacific Northwest conference. Each one has their different culture. And if you go into that conference knowing that, I think you can get out of it as much as you want to put into it. And I think that's important.
All right. That's good. Lastly, and then I'm going to ask you if I've left anything off the table that I should have brought up. Maybe you can ask me a question or two. Are you used to this? You've been on this side more than that side, right?
No.
Over the years? I mean, you interview more than you've been interviewed? Huh?
I don't interview anybody.
Well, maybe not an official interview, but you're on the phone, you're working the phones, you're asking questions,
No.
How do you get your
info?
That's the
funny thing. I mean,
are you telling me you're so iconic that information just pours right into your lap at this point?
I wouldn't say I'm so iconic, but
I said that. I would say you're iconic, though. We'll get to that in a minute. Before the end, I got to kiss the ring because you were. Hang on. You were the first person. You are legendary to me. So maybe you don't like to hear that, but I mean, I knew of you. You were the first person I started to really pay attention to, whose opinion I respected, whose knowledge, whose access I respected. And this goes back almost 3 decades. So I mean, you've always been the name to me. So I've just let you know how you show up in my world.
Well, I very much appreciate that because you obviously have created a whole world unto yourself. What I tend to do, yes, information comes to me. And I think that everybody has a story to tell. Everybody is important in this industry, and I respect that. As I said earlier, I could be talking to a processor who was afraid to come up to me at a conference, and he or she will be like, "Wow, you're Rob Chrisman," and I'll say, "Well, you're Joe Smith." and you know a lot about what you do, more than I will ever know. And you are arguably more important to a group of borrowers than I am to whoever. And I think that I value people as individuals. So, and I think that comes across in my commentary. So
All
I'm
right.
not, I don't view myself as an icon. I think everybody in this industry is a great contributor to this
I'm
industry.
telling you right now, when I think of the Mortgage Mount Rushmore, you're in that 4 or 5 for sure. I mean, that's hands down. It's indisputable. Take a lap, just say thank you.
Thank you.
So, women in our industry, and I'm a huge champion of them. We've got so many brilliant minds. So many women are the engine behind so many of the successful companies out there. Yet, too few of them are on stages and speaking up. And of course, there's Empower and the great work that Marsha's doing to get women to feel like they can have a voice and to be more forceful with that voice. I'm seeing light. I'm seeing improvement. I'm seeing many more women on stages. I still feel like we have quite a ways to go, but I'm curious to know your opinion about that.
I share your opinion exactly, and I would say the same about minorities. I've been honored to speak at NAMBA a couple times, and or I should say with Tony Thompson. And Tony Thompson, he's had Dave Stevens, Mitch Kiter, and me on the stage back some years
what a
ago.
trio! What a
We
trio!
did that for a while. And I had to get off the stage and I say, Tony, you don't need 3 middle-aged white guys up here telling a room full of people of color what to do or how to do it. You need to bring up, black people, yellow people, green people, purple people, whoever. And so I'm seeing that, to your point, more with women. You're right. They're the engine that drives this industry. They deserve more time on the stage. And I think that anybody would be a fool not to appreciate the work that they do for the industry.
Amen. Amen. Did I leave anything out here? Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't, or anything that's on your mind? Any headwinds you think we should be looking out for? Just give us your final thoughts.
I think the big thing, or a big thing, I mean, interest rates are going to do what they're going to do, and so forth. But I think that from a regulatory and compliance perspective, we haven't really touched on that. And this isn't a regulatory or compliance show, and I don't want to get into it too much, but people need to know that despite the CFPB being scaled back, there's still the need to do loans in a compliant manner. There are still states out there that take their compliance and regulatory jobs very importantly. There are still class action lawsuits and so forth. So you just can't forget about compliance. You can't forget about the ability to repay. You can't forget about LO comp rules in their current form. Now, those may change, but as they stand now, it's important to keep those things in mind when you're doing loans.
I appreciate that. It's been great talking to you. Remind the audience, for those that want to subscribe to the Chrisman Report and follow the podcast, is there a website people can go to get all of that in one spot?
Yeah, they can sign up at www.chrismancommentary.com.
And there's no T in that either. I think people make the mistake of throwing the T in there. Yeah, right? Because I've done it before, right? And then I get the email back and I'm like, oops, there's no T in Chrisman. You said you're a hoops player. What basketball player, throughout the generations you think reminds you of your game?
Oh my gosh. Who Larry Bird, slow and white.
Could you shoot like Larry Bird?
Sometimes. But the game has changed.
How's your 3-point shot? How's your 3-point shot right now? Is it pretty decent? Terrible. So if you shot 10 3-pointers, how many would you make?
2.
How about from the free throw line, from the charity stripe?
8 or 9.
Yeah, you're good there, probably, yeah? Fundamentally, you probably do the same thing every time. You bounce the same amount of times, spin the ball a certain amount of times, right?
Consistency, just like sending a commentary out or doing a podcast or doing your show, consistency does count.
Yeah, you see how well I know you? It's unbelievable. I've studied you.
You have a camera in this room?
Thank you very much. Thank you for all you've done all you've done and all you continue to do. And I look forward to following the Chrisman Report. I think it's going to be around for many more decades. So thanks for the impact that you've made and for the time that you spent with us here on One-on-One.
Anytime.
All right. Enjoy your Monday, everyone. We'll see you next Monday. Take care. Bye-bye.